Welcome back to the channel. We're diving into the hot topic of first-time homebuyer tax credit of 2023, also known as the DASH Act. And let me tell you, it's been a roller coaster of emotions. The buzz around town has been that this shiny new tax credit would be a game changer for all the first-time homebuyers out there. That it would make homeownership dreams a reality for so many of us. We will get to whether the DASH Act has been passed into law, but first, let's talk about what the DASH Act is. So, picture this. You're dreaming of owning your own slice of paradise, your own cute little home, but the numbers are making your head explode. Every time you sit down with pen and paper and try to make the numbers work out, it just makes your head crazy. So enter the DASH Act to save the day. This little gem offers first-time homebuyers a chunk of change to help make those homeownership dreams a reality, like I was saying. It's a little like having a fairy godmother sprinkle some extra cash into your bank account, because who does not want a little financial magic, right? With the DASH Act, you could be looking at some serious savings when tax season rolls around. This cool new housing bill is all about making it easier for people to buy their first home. And get this, it includes a sweet $15,000 tax credit for just first-time home buyers. The DASH Act was introduced into the Senate back in March of 2023 and in January of 2024 for the House of Representatives, just barely. Along with the $15,000 tax credit, it's got some other ways to help make buying a home a little bit more affordable. And by the way, the DASH Act is a little bit different from another first-time homebuyer program that you may have heard about pretty recently when Joe Biden gave a little speech called the Biden First-Time Homebuyer Act tax credit. Totally different thing. That one offers a $10,000 tax credit for first-time homebuyers. This one's $15,000. They're different. So, the DASH Act is sponsored by Senator Ron Wyden in the Senate and Representatives Val Hoyle and Salud Carbajal in the House of Representatives. It looks like they're really trying to help out those first-time homebuyers, I'd say. DASH stands for Decent, Affordable, Safe Housing for All. And basically, this bill encourages home construction, it gives money to cities for improvement, and it helps first-time homebuyers become homeowners. It's a win-win for low and moderate income households, affordable housing builders, and state and local housing agencies. It's nice to have a little bit of taxpayer money going towards regular people instead of just ginormous businesses. This DASH Act is pretty big, with more than 20 parts to it. Some of the important things in this are, and just hang in there with me because this is a pretty long list, but it's not even the whole list. But some of the most important things I would say are that there's $10 billion for the Housing Trust Fund, tax breaks for building in tough areas, money for state-level housing agencies, funding for modular home studies, support for cities that make zoning changes, grants for helping the homeless, money to build and keep homes for farm workers, rental assistance for country folks in need, tax breaks for building affordable housing, permanent tax breaks for running low-income housing, less tax loopholes for selling rent-controlled buildings, protections for builders of affordable homes, tax breaks for building with tenant services, and a whole lot more than just that. But one really cool thing about this bill is that the $15,000 tax credit is just for first-time homebuyers. In case I haven't said that enough, it's for first-time homebuyers. How awesome is that? I just love seeing first-time homebuyers getting a little bit of help in the world. To qualify for the DASH Act, here are the basics. I'm going to tell you 4 things, and the first one is that you've got to be a first-time homebuyer, which means you've never owned a home before, which seems pretty straightforward, right? In other programs, you have to have not owned a home for 3 years, and that makes you a first-time homebuyer. Unlike other programs, they keep it pretty simple in this one. You need to be at least 18 and not on someone else's dependent to be eligible. You have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident, and you've got to buy your new place in a standard buy or sell deal and move in within 60 days of closing the deal. Number 2, make sure your home's price fits the bill. The Dash Act is all about helping low and moderate income people. So if your home's price goes over local mortgage loan limits by 10% or more, that credit does start to shrink down a little bit. And the limit usually hangs around $766,550 or $767,000 to keep it kind of short. But it can be higher in pricier areas. So if the average or median in your area is $1.1 million, it'll be closer to $1.1 million. Don't sweat it though. You still get a bit of leeway. Remember, the tax credit maxes out at 20% of your home's price. And if you snagged a deal below $75,000, your credit is going to be a little bit less than it could have been. Number 3. So basically, if you want to get that sweet $15,000 tax credit from the Dash Act for the simple act of buying your first home, you got to be making low to moderate income. And let's talk about what that means. It means that if you're single, you can't be making more than $100,000 a year. If you have dependents, it can't be more than $150,000 a year. And if you're filing jointly with a spouse, it's $200,000 a year. I think that includes a pretty decent swath of people. So it's nice to know that you're not totally left out in the cold. Number 4, here's the deal. You got to live in that home for 5 years if you want to keep all that money. It's got to be your main squeeze. You cannot have it be a vacation spot or a rental. If you do decide to move, you got to pay back some or all of that credit depending on how long you've been there. But no worries, there are some exceptions for things like job loss or illness or military relocation, and fortunately for death. If you die, you don't have to pay the Dash Act back, which is great. The Dash Act repayment schedule is probably what you would expect it to be. If you have to be in the home for 5 years, it's 20% for each year. So if you buy the house and you move before December 31st of the next year after you buy that house, you're going to repay the whole 100% back. If you move before December 31st of the second year, you're going to repay 80% back. If you move before December 31st of the third year, you're going to pay 60% back, and on down the line, 20% for every year. So after 5 years, you're not going to pay anything back. But if you do move before December 31st of that 5th year, you're going to repay 20% back, right? So let's talk about applying for the Dash Act. We all want to know how to apply for the Dash Act, don't we? It's really easy because you don't have to apply for it. It's all about that sweet tax credit life, right? Who doesn't love that? It's not like those special mortgage programs like LIFT Act or the Helper Act. And if you're eligible for the Dash Act, you just claim that sweet home purchase credit when you file your federal taxes. There's no need for a ton of paperwork. You just have to say that, yes, I bought a home, and maybe have a little bit of mortgage documentation behind that to show that you bought a home. And that's really kind of it. The cool thing about the Dash Act is that you can stack it with any mortgage program out there. So think about low down payment options. Like if you're using like Home Ready or Home Possible or even a conventional loan at 97%, or even like USDA or VA mortgages let you put 0% down, you can stack it with that. So that's a pretty good deal. If you're a veteran and you can put 0 down and they give you $15,000 credit to buy your first home, man, I wish I were a veteran, honestly. One more thing, the Dash Act credit isn't set in stone. It adjusts each year based on inflation. So if inflation's high, like 5%, that max tax credit jumps up to about $16,000. Cha-ching. It's just nice to know that you're not seeing it eroded by inflation, because that's been a huge concern lately. So here's the thing about the Dash Act. Right now, it's just a beautiful dream. Previously, I made a video saying that it had already passed. Unfortunately, I made a mistake, and it has not yet passed. I apologize for my mistake. When I was doing my research, what I saw is that it passed the Senate, and it still just hasn't passed the House yet. And I know it is a huge bummer. we're all getting excited about the possibilities, imagining a cute little home that we could finally afford, but hope isn't out yet. As of now, it's still up in the air. Who knows? Maybe the Biden first-time homebuyer tax credit will happen instead. In that one, homebuyers get a $10,000 credit broken up into $5,000 installments over 2 years. But hey, that doesn't mean that we should give up hope, right? The Dash Act could still come through and bless us with a tax credit. We just got to keep our fingers crossed and maybe send some good vibes to Capitol Hill in the form of letters, calls, and visits with our senators and our Congress people. Let's lean on them if that's what we want. Let's lean on them if that's what we want. Let's lean on them if that's what we want. Check out my video about the best neighborhoods in Salt Lake City if you've been thinking about your first home here. There's a long, in-depth version, and then I also made a shorter version. The long one is about 20-something minutes. It goes into a lot of detail about neighborhoods, prices, that sort of thing. And the short one is just sort of a little recap to give you an idea of some of the neighborhoods around Salt Lake City. I love helping you out. Thank you so much for all the people who've reached out. I really enjoy it so much. Thank you.